The cell membrane as the stage for the early evolution of life. How did cells replicate first DNA? The life was born as an organization of chain reactions. The cell membrane had been formed at first. After that, amino acids bound with the activated points of the chain reaction in cell membrane. The cell membrane that was adhered amino acids was evolved to memorize the chain reactions where a protein molecule was formed by the peptide bonding of the amino acids. The molecular organization was replicated intermittently in the cell membrane, and the first RNA and DNA were produced in the cell membrane. How long-chain hydrocarbon molecules, those make up the cell membranes of living organisms, were produced? The cell membranes of all creatures are composed of long-chain hydrocarbon of C16H34 or C18H38. Those substances stayed as a liquid state in the surface of early Earth. Earth's early atmosphere had dense atmosphere, and the main component was carbon dioxide CO2. Hydrogen ions H+ from the solar wind collided with CO2 in the upper layers of the atmosphere, resulting in the synthesis of hydrocarbon molecules. Hydrocarbons such as methane CH4, those are lighter than molecules in the atmosphere of CO2, in the sky, and these molecules bind to each other. The long chain of hydrocarbons are produced by repulsion between hydrogen atoms in the H+ rich environment. Those large molecules fell to the seawater or the ground. The specific gravity of these molecules was less than 1, and these were hydrophobic, so these floated on the surface of the water as shown in Fig. 1. Production of organic molecules by the reaction between CO2 and solar wind of H+ in the early atmosphere. Fig. 2 shows the distribution of hydrogen atoms in the current atmosphere above the Earth. There is a peaks at an altitude of 80 kilometers. Since the weight of hydrogen atom is light, it cannot be held by the gravity of Earth. The hydrogen atom concentration peaks because the H+ of the solar wind collides with the molecules of the atmosphere N2 or O2, and H+ becomes hydrogen atoms. Its hydrogen atoms rise into the upper sky, and those are released from the Earth. The solar wind has a speed of about 500 km/s. Charged particles of the same polarity moving in the same direction attract each other, and charged particles moving in opposite directions repel each other. Positive charged particles in the upper atmosphere moving on the Earth's rotation magnetically coupled with H+ of the solar wind passing through the eastern side of the Earth, and magnetically repel H+ of the solar wind passing through the western side. Therefore, the Earth's atmosphere is moving from west to east faster than the Earth's rotation. The mean free path of collisions between atmospheric molecules at the ground is about 0.001 mm. The reason why hydrogen ions in the solar wind do not reach to the ground is due to collisions with molecules in the Earth's atmosphere. The origin of CO2 and H2O in the Earth. There is a theory that the water in the Earth's sea comes from the interior of the Earth. However, there is a theory that the planet grew after the Sun started a nuclear fusion reaction due to the gravitational decay of hydrogen as shown on the left side of Fig. 4. When the Sun is in nuclear fusion, the snow line is near the center of the asteroid belt, and the Earth is located closer to the Sun, so it cannot take water as ice into the Earth's interior. The model that resolves the contradiction is shown on the right side of Fig. 4. At the beginning stage of the Sun and planets, it is thought that cosmic dust containing solid H2O and CO2 came into contact in a cold environment and grew as a mass of point contact by short-range forces. About 99.86% of the mass of the solar system is accounted to the Sun. The remaining 0.14% is present in the orbits of the Sun. According to Kepler's third law, the velocity of a celestial body orbiting the same orbit is the same regardless of its mass. Therefore, the cosmic dust that remained in orbit combined with ice and dry ice due to the short-range force at the point of contact and formed a mass and grew into a planet. Only largely grown-up celestial bodies can hold the hydrogen by its gravity. The Sun is located at the center of the solar system. When the Sun became to retain hydrogen, rapidly grew large by self-propagation and began nuclear fusion. When the Sun exploded by the nuclear fusion reaction 4.6 billion years ago, fragments of the core, that formed the core of the Sun, were ejected and a large amounts of meteorites fell to the planets. The Earth's surface, which was bombarded by the meteorite, was heated, and the CO2 and H2O contained inside were degassed and became a secondary atmosphere. Evolution of molecular structures, those organized by macroscopic boundary conditions. Among the long-chain molecules synthesized by CO2 in the early atmosphere together with H+ of solar wind, the molecules of C16H34 or C18H38 in the liquid state suspended on the surface of the water form a film with a single atomic layer. A carboxyl group was attached to one end of these molecules to form fatty acids via irradiation of sunlight. Fatty acids float with the end of the carboxyl group attached to the underside of the water surface. The fatty acids with large number of carbon atoms are insoluble in water and have a structure that is perpendicular to the water surface. The structure of the molecule was strengthened horizontally by glycerin. In water, the film of fats and oils becomes a double-layer film with a hydrophobic region inside. In this way, the membrane was created that allowed the reaction to move laterally. Protein molecules that memorize chain reactions had been produced in the cell membrane. The cell membrane is a bilayer membrane with a hydrophobic tail facing each other as shown in Fig. 6. Since both outer surfaces of the double layer are hydrophilic, the entire membrane adapts to the environment, and the inside is filled with hydrophobic fatty acids, so it can block the inside and outside of the cell. Amino acid molecules have an amino group NH3, a carboxyl group COOH, and an alkyl group R group of CnH2n+1, which tends to adhere to the fat membrane. The amino acid molecules forms a protein molecule by peptide bonds of dehydration. The R group, which is called the side chain of a protein, is not easily adapted to water, so the part where the R group is continuous is easily folded inside the protein. In this way, the R group affects the properties of proteins. Amino acid molecules are attached to the part of the chain reaction generated in the membrane, and the protein and membrane molecular tissue formed by peptide bonding have the function of enzymes that store the chain reaction. Later in this presentation, we propose that tRNA and mRNA were synthesized by membranes with amino acids and protein molecules. Those were attached to similar membranes circulated in opposite directions. Thermal motion of systematic molecules in a helical structure of carbonated water. In the early Earth's atmosphere, CO2 were the main component, and they were dissolved in ocean water. If you observe the thawing of ice in carbonated water, you can observe that small bubbles move in tandem. The lowest volume and lowest energy structure in crystals made up of CO2 tetrahedron is the helix of alpha quartz. It can be considered that the helical structure is formed in the area where the bubbles connect with the small bubbles of carbonated water. The helix has a systematic molecular thermal motion as shown in Fig. 7. This is the environment that produces molecules of the right-handed type, left-handed type. Therefore, amino acids is able to synthesize filament-like molecules of proteins with a helical structure. DNA double helix, which is crossed with two strands. The structure indicates the mechanism of synthesis. As shown in Fig. 9, the molecular structure of DNA has two strands, leading strand and lagging strand. The two main chains are connected by base pairs by hydrogen bonds, i.e. adenine A and thymine T and guanine G and cytosine C. Both the leading and lagging strands are identical in that DNA is synthesized from 5' to 3' direction, however the progress of the chain synthesis is crossed. As described later, the mechanism by which DNA is formed can be inferred from this structure of DNA. Evolution of DNA replication through digital movement of molecules on the cell membrane. Due to the difference in the chirality of tRNA and mRNA, which have a double helix structure of DNA, the two do not merge. As shown in Fig. 10, tRNA and mRNA rotate in opposite directions at the synthesis. At the point of synthesis, amino acid molecules are the same size and length even, but the relationship between face-to-face matching must be the complementary relationships. The codon of mRNA and the anticodon code of tRNA are composed of 3 nucleosides. Ribosome that replicate protein molecule was originated in the cell membrane. As shown in Fig. 11, the amino acids carried by tRNAs are matched to the mRNA amino acid sequence intermittently as a gear meshing manner. Here, the digital processing play an important role in the reconciliation process. Since replication of a protein need to infallible sequence of amino acid units, the molecules of one amino acid are matched frame by frame as a single piece of a gear, and the next collation is carried out by a cross-shifting. Although the molecules of each amino acid are the same size and the same length, the representative of amino acid on mRNA and tRNA are compared as if left hand and right hands. As the result of evolution, the codon of mRNA, which is composed of 3 nucleosides, and the anticodon code of tRNA, were selected. The manipulation of early state of protein replication took place in the cell membrane. Summary: the collision of carbon dioxide in the primordial atmosphere and hydrogen ions in the solar wind provides organic molecules. The hydrocarbon molecules of cell membrane were produced in the early Earth. By rejecting the conventional understanding that the solar wind is shielded by the Earth's geomagnetic field, we can open the door to a new world of origin and early evolution. Thank you for your attention.